Hi there, welcome to Universe Antenna. Today I'll be sharing with you one of my favorite parts of Sadhguru's book Karma, A Yogi's Guide to Crafting Your Destiny. This book was released in 2011. Today this is not a book review, but a highlight of my favorite part. So I will start off telling you the story that's written in chapter 2, Volition, the Basis of Karma. The title of this section is The Consequence of Calculation. So this is the story. Very interesting one too. It happened on a certain evening. Two friends were walking together. It was their weekly custom to visit a prostitute every Saturday evening. While they were walking toward the prostitute's house, they heard a voice delivering a discourse on the Bhagavad Gita, India's great sacred text. One friend was seized by guilt. He decided not to visit the prostitute and said he would rather improve himself by attending the lecture on the Gita. The other man left him there and went ahead. Now the man sitting in the lecture hall found his thoughts were full of his friend who was with the prostitute. He began to envy him. While he was stuck in this lecture room, the other man, he was convinced, was having the time of his life. He couldn't help feeling his friend was far more intelligent in choosing the brothel over a scriptural discourse. Now, the man who had gone to the prostitute's house found his mind was full of his friend at the lecture hall. He was filled with admiration for his friend who had chosen the path to liberation by option for a spiritual discourse over carnal pleasures. This story was often related by the great 20th century Indian mystic, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He always drew attention to the central paradox. It is the man at the Gita discourse who kept thinking about what was happening in the prostitute's house, who piled up the adverse karma. It is he who suffered, Sri Ramakrishna pointed out, much more than the man who visited the prostitute. Why? Because although karma denotes action of body, mind, and energy, it is not about action alone. The man who went to the prostitute did not pile up as much karma as his friend because he did not make a calculation. His friend, on the other hand, secretly wished he was with her but believed that by going to the discourse he would get one step closer to heaven. The calculation meant an acquisition of more karma. Ironically, the man who thought about how to shed karma actually ended up accumulating it. The man with the prostitute, on the other hand, was seized by a sense of limitation of his experience. That would have impelled him in the future to seek something more. So the experience with the prostitute became a trigger for his personal growth. This story points to a common mistake. People often assume karma is only about external action. They think performing acts of charity and virtue will earn them good karma. Well, they never quite realize is that it is about something much subtler. Karma is much more fundamentally about volition. I hope you have enjoyed that brief reading, that story. This story hit me quite hard the first time I read it. Though, I don't have the exact situation, like the friend visiting prostitute. But I certainly relate to, make a decision that's not truly what I want. And then being envious of those who seem to always have ability to just choose what they want to do. Even if it inconveniences others. And for a long time, I thought about those people being selfish. And so when I read it, I'm like, oh, it's so not fair. Not only I didn't get to choose what I want, So I didn't get what I want, while I had to feel envious feeling towards those who could just like choose what they want. On top of that, I had to like have more averse karma. So it just seemed like a really bad deal to make. And however, that is martyrdom, that is victimization. And when I envy people of certain thing, I realize the reason I envy is because I think I can have it too. I don't envy people who can play basketball really well because I don't think I want or I can, and doesn't matter. So when I think envy is more like a message telling myself, hey, there's possibility for you too. You can have this too. And so I now see envy as a positive message, something I should listen to, versus something I should like destroy. Like, oh no, I'm envious again. It's such a painful feeling. How do I get rid of it? I should ask myself, like, what is that I'm not doing? What is blocking me doing those things, you know? So I certainly relate to the guy who went to the Gita reading and being envious of his friend who went to prostitute and, you know, and get all crazy in his head. I have done that so many times in my life. I chose decisions that's not of my best interest, or that I don't really want to choose, out of 3 reasons mainly for me, maybe not in your case. One is just pure dread, like, oh my God, I'm afraid to choose what I want. So the result, life status quo and suffering. The other reason I often don't choose what I wanted is I try to appease others, trying to get approval. It's not always very conscious, but because I feel it's safer, I don't want to piss off certain people, you know, and therefore I chose what I think they will be happy if I choose. And the result is I depriving myself from what I really want, and I resent of them, you know, for thinking they made me do this, but they didn't, right? And also I realized at the end, they don't even care that I chose what they want me to choose. Like, they just go on and live their lives. So all that was done for nothing. And a third reason that I often choose not what I just feel like doing is because I think about, I want to improve myself. I want to elevate myself. But I realize that kind of thinking is kind of like an obsession, and it's not a good one, because constantly want to improve and elevate oneself, you can like keep life, the messy life, away from you. And then your universe can feel more contained, but also small, because you're not allowing life to come in and make a mess sometimes. So those are the 3 reasons that why I often don't choose what I really want. But it's less now. Now, especially after reading this story, you know, it was painful. Yeah, and I decided, you know, I don't need to be the person envious of other who can just like be selfish and go with what they want. They're not selfish. They're just being true to themselves. And I really think the world would be a better place if we are true to ourselves. Yeah, and so, however, you know, choosing what you want, it's very difficult, because for me, if my mind, it's like turning very fast. What I think I want this morning about a topic will look very different when I think about it again in the evening, and will look again different tomorrow, right? So at the end, I just go round and round, and on certain topics, this can last months. And at the end, I couldn't make a decision. I would go right and left and right and left. At the end, I'm just at the same point, except I'm exhausted in my head, you know? So I came across this video on a channel called Sync Mind. And it's a video of Sadhguru talking about decision making. He was saying how, if you notice when your mind is very, very turbulent, like what I described before, your decision will change constantly, and you will go nowhere and just going around a circle. But if you can find that happy place which is often produced by meditation, being meditative, or you can experience sometime, when you're running, after you're physically exhausted, you get that serene place. Often you get a hot moment of, okay, that's what I need to do. And it has such a good feeling. It has this peaceful, quiet, serene feeling to it. This knowing of what to do. And so he was saying, when you find a happy place and you realize what you need to do, stick to it. Even if that decision looks to you very scary tomorrow or feels awful, feels so hard, you must stick to it, because that's where ultimately your well-being lies. And I really relate to that because I have a few big decisions that I made in the past. It was born out of a moment of clarity. Sometimes it feels very painful, but it also feels a sense of peace and acceptance. And I stick with those decisions daily, little by little, but daily. And sometimes very painful, but I still do them. And in the long run, they absolutely changed my life. And that wasn't done overnight. It was a daily commitment to that same decision that I made. I'm sticking with it. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. I urge you to take risks and follow your life impulse. At times, you might face accusations of being selfish or being irresponsible. But remember, people usually say that just because you're not doing what they want. And it's a form of guilt trip and control. As a mentor used to tell me, you get what you aim at. I hope you aim at what you desire to do. Stick with them no matter what. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.